Nice.
Ooh.
Right.
I asked the Myodetox family out there to keep it calm in the chat room. It's gonna go nuts over there.
Yeah, please.
Welcome, folks. Welcome. Thanks for joining. Really appreciate having you guys here.
Shafin.
You're welcome, man. You're welcome.
Man.
Quick housekeeping. Make sure you have your chat on all panelists and attendees so everybody can see your comments. You'll be seeing a lot of Christina Lumba's. Her name will come up often, so. Cool, keep rolling in. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, welcome. Got East Coast, West Coast, across the world. Excited for this. Probably give you guys a minute or two to keep rolling in and then we'll get it rolling. Malaysia. You already beat me to the punch. I was about to ask everybody where they're from.
Oh, Malaysia. Nice.
Oh, wow.
Nick, got some folks out there. Got some
Nick
folks
out there. Yo.
All right, let's get rolling. Really want to make the most use of these 60 minutes. They're going to fly by. Lots to talk about. Got some incredible folks on this panel here today. So let's get rolling. Welcome all to the first installment of ThinkTank webinars. We've been wanting to kick this off for a long time now. We've been talking about the idea of just really sharing our world with our peers and our colleagues and everybody in the space. And I think like as the world was turning normally, things just get crazy. We're just spending a lot of time just like supporting our team and our community. And we often don't get the opportunity to create an environment like this to just get everybody in the room, just get all of our peers and our colleagues and people doing incredible things in their spaces into one place and just having an open conversation. And it's unfortunate that something like this had to happen to force us to hit reset and just really think about where we're spending our time during this period, and it really pushes us to think about how can we create a platform and a space for us all to come together, have an open conversation, just get a little vulnerable, get intimate, just really talk about our fears, our desires, and everything we're experiencing. Just continue to grow together, and that's kind of where the idea of ThinkTank was born. So I want to kick it off just by welcoming everybody on the panel here. Quick introductions. Those of you I haven't met, my name's Kevin. I am the regional director for Myodetox in Toronto. I'm a chiropractor, graduate of, I'm going to date myself right now, but NYCC in 2011. I've been practicing for about 8 years now. Spent the earlier part of my career just wanting to be the best possible therapist and clinician I could be. Was really obsessed with anatomy, biomechanics, physiology, and then over time that evolved into me wanting to just really understand how to share my experiences and my own personal growth with those around me, and then it quickly turned into wanting to better understand how to lead and manage people and just try to get the best out of people as we all work and grow together. So it kind of led me into the space that I'm in right now. Next up, we got Nicholas Lowe. Nick is our Chief Operating Officer. Nick is a graduate of UBC. I don't want to date you even more, bro. Nick's a 2006 graduate of UBC over on the West Coast. Been practicing for 10 years, and Nick and I have had a lot of conversations about the space and about growing as a clinician, and shared a lot of the same desires early in our careers, which is just being the best clinician possible and providing the best care we possibly could. But Nick took it a further level, which I always commend him for. And a lot of you out there are probably in the same boat where you're growing to be the best possible therapist, but then also running a business and growing an operation all at the same time. And I commend you guys, because at the time I couldn't even fathom adding another thing to my plate. So it's Nick, and then we have Gretchen McLennan. Gretchen is our clinic director at North Shore, graduate of UBC in 2003. Were you guys there at the same time at UBC? Nick, Gretchen?
Andrew and I.
Andrew, yes, of course, Drew out there. So Gretchen and I spent the last week just getting to know each other better. Gretchen's up in North Shore in Vancouver. Every time I'm out there, I'm always waiting for Nick to either take me there or Drew to invite me, but neither's happened yet. So eventually I'll get up to North Shore. I'll just you'll bring me out there, Gretchen. You'll bring me out there. Yeah, so really excited to have Gretchen on the panel here today to share her insights. And Gretchen's near 20 years of experience in the space. So really excited to, no, don't worry. All of that wisdom's going to come out and really help a lot of folks out here just better understand, like Scott, North Shore is life. Just better understand
It is.
how to grow and how to leverage, your community and your network and your team. And there's just a lot of insights that Gretchen has to share in that space, which I'm excited to pull out of her throughout this conversation. Then we have Mike, close friend of mine. We've been working together for a long time now. Mike is our brand director at Myodetox. Mike's worked with some incredible brands likes of Nike, North Shore, Jeep, and I think that brand is a very cliche kind of buzz term, very similar and synonymous with culture right now. I think those two words get tossed around a lot, and there's not always a lot of depth around the idea of culture and brand. And I'm really excited for Mike to be on here and just bring color and context to the idea of a brand and what that represents, and how a brand can almost be theoretically thought of as a person and how that person shows up. And as all of you are working on your own personal brands, just bringing more color and context to what that idea means. So I'd love to kick it off in the chat and just do some housekeeping, but I'd love to know where everybody's from. We've gotten a lot of love, support emails around where you guys are tuning in from. I think somebody in Australia was like, this thing's going to be 1 a.m. I'm gonna find a way to tune in. So just, go nuts in the chat. Just let us know where you're from. Philippines, Chicago, LA. Okay, it's going nuts. We'll have this
nice.
The chat comments are going to be recorded, so we can dig in a little bit later on. We really just love to find out where everybody's from, so we can make sure that we support you guys as best as possible and kind of figure out what's the best time to have this webinar series. As you guys continue to go off in there, I'll just roll on with some housekeeping. Make sure that your chat is set to all panelists and attendees. That way everybody can see the comments that you're making. Just wanted to put out a little quick disclaimer. I just want you guys to know that these are all of our opinions, all of our own insights and our own way of thinking. Everybody here has incredible insights to share, but I just want you guys to just know that this is not legal advice. This is just us having an open conversation. Anything around guidelines, it differs from province to province, state to state, country to country. Make sure you consult with your regulatory body, your association, if you have any questions around anything that we talk about here, and see how that relates to you in your own space and how you're practicing. You have an option if you toggle at the top between gallery and speaker view. Generally, so Nick's going to have a little bit of a slide deck he's going to present later. What's a talk with Nick without a slide deck? So Nick's going to roll through that, but I think the slide deck is important because it's going to bring us context, is going to bring color to the conversation we're going to have later. And you guys all rolled in with the idea we're going to be talking about relationships, and relationships is a super broad topic. So the slide deck will just bring some context to the idea of relationships and why that matters so much in our space, and even more so now than ever. We all have talked a lot at length about the idea that I think the decisions that we make right now will really reflect what our brand represents and what we represent to our space as people for years to come. So I think it's an incredible opportunity to hit reset, hit pause, sharpen your tools, just dig deeper and better understand your values and what you bring to the space. So we also have the Q&A that's open. I'd love to save the Q&A for just questions that you might have. We might field them throughout the conversation. We might save them for the end. If your question doesn't get answered, we'll definitely hit you up on through email. And if not, your question might lead to topics that we cover in the future. So again, if you have any questions, save that for the Q&A. I'll personally jump in there and field them if it makes sense to pull it in during the conversation. I might even help some of you up if you're up to it. Again, this is a think tank. It's an open conversation, and if it makes sense to pull you on the mic, just so we can have a talk on whatever your question might be and bring more context to it, we will do that. Cool. So I want to kick off with a poll here. Really interesting, just to get insight on where everybody's from, what your background is, and it'll just bring us more context to how we want to roll these out in the future, what we're going to talk about, and who we're speaking to. So we got 2 questions here for you guys. Just answer what's your profession, and how many years have you been in your field of practice. So we'll give you guys a minute to jump in there. What we got over here? Shafeen, how do I get my jump shot back? Talk to Nick. Nick's second profession will be a coach, form coach.
Yeah, definitely don't talk to Drew though. Definitely don't talk to Drew. Shaf's actually Drew's good friend, so.
Cool. Somebody actually kicked off what I wanted to mention here. So if you are in the other bracket, please jump in the chat room and let us know. Let us know what your background or your profession is. We don't expect everybody in here to be a healthcare professional. People might be coming from all different walks of life, and that's what makes this incredible. We're building a community that extends beyond the walls of healthcare, and it's incredibly inspiring to us that that we can speak to folks that are outside of our space. Cool. Okay, we'll give this a couple more seconds here. Okay, about to end the poll so that all of you can see who's in the room and who you're sitting in here with. Cool. So we got a lot of physiotherapists, physical therapists in the space, chiropractors, registered licensed massage therapists. You have some personal trainers out there, and then a lot of other, a good bulk of others. So yeah, just keep rolling in the chat what other represents. And I'm already seeing this now. I want you guys to know this chat is about building community and building a safe space for one another. So if you guys want to engage and communicate with each other in the chat, please feel free to do so. All right, let's get into it. Let's dive in. Just want to set the stage a little bit for the agenda. So Nick will be presenting that slide deck. He's going to, again, bring context and color to the idea of relationships and why they matter now more than ever. He'll spend about 10 to 15 minutes in there. We'll pop back out, and then we'll have an open discussion. Some of the discussion might be fielding some of your questions. So as Nick's rolling through that content, please feel free to jump in the Q&A, share your questions so that we can field them when he's done. And we'll open up the conversation, get insights from Gretchen and Mike, and we'll just talk out loud. And I want you all to, again, feel empowered to share your thoughts, your ideas, and we'll get through as much as we can in this talk. Nick, it's all yours. Floor is yours, bro.
All right, cool. So thanks, Kev. I'll set the stage a little bit. Probably 10, 15 minutes. I tend to over talk, and so I'll be watching. Kev wants to cut me off. Definitely cut me off. I don't have that many slides this time. I have a bunch of slides. A lot of it is just like conversation. Each slide has a couple things on it that I think are relevant right now. And again, like Kev mentioned, just take everything with a grain of salt. Obviously these are our insights at Myo, and also just our opinions on a lot of things. And we do want to bring up the conversation of relationships and kind of why it matters. But again, this is not like advice for you guys at all in any way, shape, or form. It's just really just opening up the conversation, and hopefully a lot of people feel the same way, and we can have like a really good discussion about it afterwards. So I'll start by talking a little bit about just the current state. I mean, it's very, very self-explanatory, but this COVID pandemic is like it's changed the landscape of the entire world. It's definitely changed our industry. Very quickly, a lot of us were faced with just very, very challenging decisions and had to think on our feet very fast. And I think as business owners, as leaders, as managers, as clinicians, and even as human beings, how do we navigate these difficult times, and how do we do it in a way that's staying true to, I guess, our own value systems. And it's a stressful time, no question about it. So the way we looked at it was, first and foremost, even before thinking about next steps, our job as leaders in a company is really to ensure the safety of our people and our team. That includes our clients, our community at large. And when we're faced with such massive threats to our lives, I think as human beings, it's our collective responsibility to be there for each other and protect each other. Only then can we even make a decision to move forward. So again, these things came very fast and very quick, and we did have to make some very, very big decisions. First slide here, quote by Albert Einstein. The thought is, once we actually made a decision to kind of protect each other and take a step back, slow it down, reflect a little bit, we'll all quickly realize there is actually a silver lining in all of this. And for myself, it was really like, it's an opportunity for us to go back to the basics. I came from a time that, I started a company back in 2011 in Vancouver before I joined Myo, and before social media and before a lot of these kind of things. And to me, the basics of business was really how do we deliver value? And business is simply a vehicle to deliver that value. And my job right now in leading operations is, from a business perspective, I have to look at it very zoomed out and give everyone just perspective on what we're actually dealing with here. If you look at the first line over here, first, to give people context, this is just the timeline on the bottom, and this is capacity. So, how many clients we're servicing, or how many sessions we're servicing, or how much value we're providing on a day-to-day basis. And this is standard, like we're building. We call this our ramp period. Everything was great. March 17th happens. We made a decision as a company to close our doors for a lot of reasons. Again, we had to make decisions very fast. After this particular date, you can see everything just goes down to zero. We shut our doors. We can no longer service clients. And, there's April 1st, there's May 1st, there's June 1st. For a few months, when we do decide to reopen again, when we have the ability to make that decision to reopen again, then we will start again. We will resume our practice and build up kind of a new ramp and build up our business like normal. And I think it's very easy to see that, at best case scenario is we go back to kind of where we were. Very likely, it's probably going to be a slower ramp and a slower period of time as people start to get back into their lives. So from a business perspective, I look at this as like, well, there's this massive gap here, right? April 1st, May 1st, June 1st, maybe July 1st. Nobody actually knows when we're actually going to be able to open again. A few things here. Number one, this is obviously a big time period where, maybe number one, it allows us to reset our systems and then go back to the basics of what good business is. And good business has always been about relationship building. Number two, it allows us to leverage these relationships into massive networks of trust. Number three, it allows us to build, it allows us to measure, and also learn by creating an environment for all of our clinicians to interact with their clients in a way that's authentic and meaningful to them. And then number four, it allows us a much more successful return when we actually decide to open again. So when we look at the next slide, this is really the goal. And, again, through any crisis, there's opportunity. The goal here, if we do this right, we don't return at the same rate of growth. If you look at here, at a certain point, we're going to make a decision that we still have a job to do. And our job is to deliver value, whatever that value is. And I'm going to go into value a little bit with you guys. But at a certain point, we're going to make a decision. Acquisition, retention are your basic kind of client terms of really just building your caseload, also, as well as just building your business. During this time period, there's going to be a huge opportunity for us to be able to actually grow our business. And really, what's important is this point here, which is our hypothetical open date. At the time when we actually decide to open, what we want to see is this, right? Not this, which is a ramp or a business that's actually less steep than it was before. What if we could do this? What if there's an opportunity to build even a more significant ramp than ever before? And the question is like, how do we actually do that? How's that possible during this time? And the answer to that is brand equity. In terms of brand equity, brand is simply trust, right? And I know we have Mike here who's going to talk a lot about brand, so I'm not going to go into brand in depth. But to me, brand is simply trust. And trust is built on your ability to deliver value that you promise, right? And a lot of us during this time period, start to think, what is it that we actually value and what is it that our clients actually value? Because one of the most important principles of any good business is this line here: values drive action. And what you need to remember is it's not about delivering value that matters to you. It's about delivering shared value that matters to you and your client, right? So again, it's not about delivering value that matters. It's about delivering shared value. If you can uncover the values of your community, you can start to understand what motivates them, what always motivated them, and why they even make the decisions they make. Once you understand these values, you can now actually design your product, your service, your offering, and ultimately your message and brand to influence behavior more powerfully than ever before, right? And as an example, because I know a lot of clinics out there right now are offering tele-rehab, virtual sessions. Virtual sessions is an offering. It's an offering of value. So when we made a decision, okay, we're going to offer virtual sessions, it's the first question we ask is, we're not going to ask how much we should charge for a virtual session. We actually should be asking, what is the shared value in a virtual session? And the answer was never going to be a dollar amount. Whether you charge or not charge, that's completely up to you. The answer is the long-term value in the relationship. That long-term value in the relationship is the shared value between you and a client. And this is probably my favorite line out of all of this, which is, adversity doesn't change your values, it simply exposes them. What I mean by that is, we don't develop our values in times of crisis. We already have values regardless of the crisis. As an example, if you actually value your family before the crisis, you probably value your family more now, right? If you value relationships before the crisis, you probably value relationships even more now. So during this crisis, for a lot of us, it's kind of self-discovery as we sit back and reflect. And an opportunity for all of us to really check ourselves and in some ways maybe even call ourselves out a little bit. And it's okay to call ourselves out, because when times are good, it's easy to say we value all the good stuff. In times of need, the question is, do we still? Because if the decisions you make today don't follow the same values you claim to have, well, you probably don't value those things as much as you say you do, right? And again, for us, as an example, would be a virtual session. There's nothing wrong with deciding to offer a virtual session and charge a fee for service, right? But what does that actually say? To me, that says that maybe you might value the transaction more than you value the relationship. That's all it means. And that, I don't think there's right or wrong. I think everyone has different value systems and everyone's allowed to express their value systems. In times of need, when the world is at war, I don't think we should ignore the most powerful asset that we have available to us. And that is the ability to make our clients feel safe in a time of threat. And that in itself is the shared value between you and your client, which is the relationship. This one's very self-explanatory. Focus on the relationship, not the transaction. The funny thing about this particular line is this was a principle that was taught in our foundations training at Myo as part of our onboarding for new staff for years. We've been presenting this to the team. Every single new team member goes through these decks, and this line was always written on there. But I'm not sure that everyone fully understood it until now, right? And it's funny how these things work. When adversity comes, you start to think back to all the things that you're supposed to value. And the reason we had these things is because we don't value this because of the crisis. We value this despite the crisis. We value this regardless of the crisis. So, and I think, because of society and because of, just human nature, we've somehow created an environment where people typically are only willing to give after they've received, right? Which flips this, the other way. And, in my opinion, that paradigm is very flawed. What about giving before you get, right? What about giving despite getting? What about giving whether you get or you don't get, right? Like, I've always believed that fundamentally it's the secret to unlocking a fulfilling life, to give with zero expectation of a return. Like, how many of us have done that? Like, ever? Or the last time we've done that? And what better time than now, right? When the world needs it more than ever. Team, client, community, this one, this is about priorities, right? Why this one specifically matters a lot to me is because, when back in 2016, 2017, when I made the decision to join Myo, right, these priorities weren't clear to myself and my team. It was never clear, right? Was it team first, client first, company first, myself first? In 2018, by 2018, after I made the switch to join Myo, half my team left me, right? And that to me was my own fault for not making it very clear what the priorities of the company should be. Because priorities is something that is crucial, especially in difficult times. And it's something for everyone in a company should know and preach, right? When making a decision, who is it for? For us at Myo, it's always going to be a team first approach, right? Collectively, we're going to decide to make a decision because it serves our team the best. We start by caring for each other first, then we care for our clients next, then our communities. And last, and always last, is our stakeholders, which means our owners. There's a lot of owners at Myo. We have a model that allows a lot of clinicians to own clinics in our space. But we want to make that very clear that there is priorities that we have to follow. And as a company, there should always be priorities that you follow, because the order actually matters, especially in times of need. In our case, the customer is actually not always right. They always say the customer is always right. In our case, not always, right? That depends, all right? Because our team has to come first. And, so why team first? We've always looked at it like how we built this entire business was team first, because in a lot of ways it's a competitive edge for us as a company. Everything I've ever read about, companies and products and different offerings is, if you have a great product, a great design, a cool brand, those things can be copied at really any time. And it happens all the time. In front of our eyes, it happens. But a motivated team that's chasing dreams together, trying to succeed together, that's always going to be irreplaceable, right? If everything falls apart, as long as we have our team, we know we'll be fine, right? So, the great Simon Sinek, this is obviously very, very simple. It's one of his quotes. To us, it's like the prerequisite to great service, high quality therapy, a great product is a team of motivated and engaged team members. Simple, right? I'm not going to dive into this one because I think I am next week or the week after on another one of these think tanks where we're going to go into the nitty-gritty details of this. But this one's important, and it's something I teach a lot because it's kind of ironic. To me, this is the secret. This is the secret to building a true caseload, right? Why? Because the number one marketing strategy for you you know, whether you're a clinician, owner, whatever that is going to be through your clients, right? So if your client retention, by the way, is just about relationship building. Is building loyalty and trust with your clients. That's all it is. But if you're providing them, not just providing them, but exceeding their value, especially a shared value, that will open up the floodgates for client acquisition, right? And I'll dive into that a lot deeper in the next couple of weeks to give some specific tactics and strategies on this. But it's something to really remember, because what better time than now? I love this photo, by the way. It was our North Shore event. I always like a lot of smiling faces. But you know, the current marketplace is different. But not only because of the crisis, it was already trending in that direction. The rise of technology, social media, you know, Instagram, TikTok, all this kind of stuff, it's created a noisy market that is overcrowded with information overload. What that means is people are actually more skeptical than they've ever been, right? And during these times, there's always going to be a general lack of trust, and especially from untrusted sources, right? And the crisis only made things worse. Can't really blame people. It's a stressful time. So the opportunity that's sitting in front of us is building trust through our existing tribes, clients we already have existing relationships with, that who are already ambassadors of you as a person, as a human being, not even as a clinician. So by providing shared value to your tribe, they will in turn provide shared value to their tribe, right? I'll repeat that again, because that's probably the most important thing that you can get out of this, is by providing shared value to your tribe, they will in turn provide shared value to their tribe. This is what we call the network effect, right? And again, something that has always been taught through our systems, but maybe wasn't fully grasped until now, which is interesting. The network effect is an exponential way to grow, not linear, right? If you look at these photos here or these diagrams, you'll see every line in the diagram is simply a connection. And every connection equals more trust and less threat. More trust and less threat with every single connection. You see one person here with multiple connections to multiple people that are connected to multiple people, right? This is what a tribe is. This is the key in building a healthy caseload. Because 10 clients in one community has a much stronger connection than 10 clients in 10 different communities, right? High levels of trust, low levels of threat. An environment that's basically perfect for relationship building. So I know I'm running out of time because Kev's looking at me like with eyes.
Nah, man, you're good. You're good. I'm zoned. Taking it all in, bro.
So this is the last slide. I'm gonna end with this quote, you know, by Seth Godin. I know Kev's a big Seth Godin fan.
Nice, my guy.
Right. And really, this quote is about having the courage to think different and be different. And you know, if you do have to, if you're going to be a follower, at least follow with your heart. That's it. So I'll pass it back to Kev. Kev's going to end up leading the discussion with us, with Mike and Gretchen. Hopefully, we're going to answer some of your questions as well. Hope that wasn't too long.
No, it's perfect.
That's great.
That was great. It was great. It definitely draws a lot of context and just like unpacks a lot of concepts and ideas I think get tossed around a lot, that I just think like just be as a part of our space in our careers and what we're doing, like we care so much that we end up getting so enveloped in the day-to-day operations and business that we're running, that it's hard to take an opportunity to just hit pause and really dig deep and uncover what your values are. Does it align with the personal brand you're building, with the company that you're working for. Because when those things align, decision making is so much easier. Fulfillment is so much stronger, and like every single day you just feel like you're growing and evolving. And I know a lot of the content in the presentation Nick put out is like, it's very high level, but it's really important to set that stage, because as we get a little bit more tactical and start to talk about strategies in the coming weeks, laying that foundation is extremely important. So Gretchen, I'd love to toss it over to you. So like a lot of the concepts that Nick talked about, I think some of the big things I've heard over the last couple of weeks, which one, crisis equals opportunity. And I think that a lot of clinicians in the space like yourself, who, you have a huge community of teammates, clients, and a large group of people that you serve. Like, how have you found the last 2 weeks? Like, what have you learned? What have you uncovered? What kind of strategies, if you took everything that Nick was talking about and put it into like, tangible context, what did that look like for you?
It's been interesting. Yeah, it's been an interesting few weeks, of course, but basically we look at the team first, like Nick was saying, kind of team, and then client, and then community. If you looked at the team first, we basically had two choices. It was either, okay, people need us. How can we capitalize? That's one route you can take. Or people need us. How can we help? And it was overwhelmingly everybody would just wanted to help. So that was an easy decision from a team perspective, for sure. It was like, okay, we're going to do this. How do we do it? We very quickly pivoted from, okay, this is our new reality. How can we make this work? It was really a no-brainer for all of us, which spoke to the value of our core values as a company and as a team. So that was easy. Right. What we didn't know was how were people going to react to it? Yep. Did people want this? Was it going to be a popular thing? Was it going to be like people jumping in, yes, I want this? Or, are people under a lot of stress and they're dealing with their families and their jobs, and, was it too much? But it was really, really interesting to see it evolve. Virtual sessions. For the clients. Got it. Yeah. Once everybody was on board, once all the team was completely on board, like I said, which was easy. That was not a tough sell at all. It felt right. Yeah. Because it was one of those things that it was like, what feels good to us? What are we going to look back on in 10 years and be proud of? Mm-hmm. It's a defining moment in our history right now for all of us, for our kids, for everything, right? This is like Nick was saying, this is war, really. And so this is a defining moment. So what are we going to be able to look back on and be really proud of as a team? So that was easy. But what we just didn't know was how this was all going to play out with our clients and all that kind of stuff. But again, that was even surprising because people were super enthusiastic. They were super appreciative. They were like, what? Mm-hmm. You're doing this for free? And just a quick example of like what Nick was talking about between the client retention and acquisition is it happened really, really organically and authentically for me. And it was really, it was a great way to kind of just put that into reality, because I saw a client, young girl who had injured her thigh before we closed down, and she wanted to do a virtual session, so we hooked it up, we set it all up. She was actually doing great. She wasn't having any issues, but her mom so happened to be on the call, and just as we were finishing up, she goes, my mom's having some really bad shoulder pain. She was going to come in before you guys shut down, but just couldn't get in, and would you be able to help her? And I was like, absolutely, no problem. And so we actually got on the call right then, hooked her up with an appointment the next day. She was super, super appreciative. She's never really been to physio before. She had just lost her husband and moved, across the country, had moved a ton of heavy boxes. Both of her shoulders were just flared up like crazy. And she was just so appreciative. And I think half the time that I spoke to her was really just talking. It was just connecting. And it was, we did some stuff with her shoulders and things like that, but it was really just very, very personal. I think in a time like this, everything's so visceral. Yep. Everything is so emotional. And it's like, if we can offer that to people, like Nick was saying, it's just that network effect is just, it's going to blow up. Right. For sure. Yeah. So, I mean, when you dig in a little bit deeper on, the idea of virtual sessions, and everybody's kind of toggling, there's a question here that we'll field in a second, like, doing it complimentary, charging for it, how much do I charge? Is
charging 70% of my normal fee schedule, like the proper values. All of us are navigating these questions all at the same time. Like, this is not happening in our history, and we are all kind of scattering to kind of redefine our not only our purpose, but how our purpose informs our operations and our decision making. And like you said, it becomes that much easier when you're rooted in particular core values. And as I mentioned in the chat really quickly, one of our values is empowering others, and it informed the decision of approaching this the way that we did, because during this crisis, money's an issue. People are getting laid off. There's financial burden. There's all of these factors. There's family. There's these factors that make life just very, very overwhelming right now. So I think the decision was rooted in if we offered an opportunity to show that we care. And it actually goes both ways, because a lot of folks on our team that I've communicated with, it's an opportunity for them to connect with people as well. And human connection goes both ways. And I think sometimes we're so rooted in what the client is experiencing and their care, and we're just hardwired to care so much that indirectly we offer ourselves support at the same time. And we felt like our direction was, let's remove all the friction, take care of our community. Like Nick said, like there's no better opportunity than right now to build trust. And in all of this adversity, it really exposes you for what your values are, and the values that you mentioned you always stood behind. Are you going to dig deep and over index on them right now, or are things feeling a little bit murky? So the idea of that is just an interesting concept. As you talk through that, Brett, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, somebody had brought up in the chat vulnerability.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
that, again, we're all on an even playing field right now.
Yeah.
I was thinking about like the junior therapists, younger therapists. This is a perfect opportunity for them, because initially when you come out of school, you're just, get the manual therapy techniques. Is this stiff? Is it not stiff? Is this strong? I can't, it's a lot, and it can add anxiety and all that kind of stuff. We're all on level playing fields right now. It's, the soft skills, the education piece, the communication, those relationships are like, that's it right now. And that's what we all have. So it kind of, I think is yes, vulnerability as a company and as a brand, but also just as people. And so this is a perfect opportunity to all just be vulnerable and grow.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like you said, like as you nurture that vulnerability in this time, and you think less about growth, which we're always so steadfast on, we take an opportunity to just kind of pause it and just nurture and make sure the people that we've always worked with are taken care of. It's interesting how that growth just happens to happen indirectly, like you were mentioning. Mike, I want to toss over to you, and there's actually a great question from Jennifer around branding perspective and what should businesses be aiming for right now. Obviously the social media and online space has become very noisy. All of a sudden, everybody's offering free training, and again, like that comes from the same values of, we just want to help our community, which is incredible to see. And when I were talking about this, that like, I guess adversity or not, your values are your values, and it should be something that you're really over-indexing on all the time. So would love to get your insight on, like, in this moment of adversity, and even at large, when you sanitize the entire thought process about a brand, like what should a brand represent for a company right now as they're talking to their community?
I think more than anything, it's important right now, whether you have a brand, whether you have your own company, whether you are your own brand and your own, obviously you're at home, practicing therapist. I think one of the biggest things is to just be human and be honest. I'm going to state the obvious. Like, if you think back to like even where we're at 4 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago, 3 months ago, I've been saying this quite a bit, how back then it was very much like, over the last few years, actually, really, it's been very much like the self-actualization era, right? Where everybody's looking at to improve, whether they're, biohacking their health, whether they're trying to level up their skills with stuff like masterclass. And I think what has the last 3 weeks has showed us, that I've been saying this personally, that I feel the mindset of consumers kind of went from the self-actualization era down to like more of the transparency era, where people are looking for values and purpose that they align with. They may not like 100% directly say, oh, that's a company I'm messing with, but emotionally they're starting to uncover what makes sense to them. And like right now, people are looking for like safety, security, trust, and belonging. And it's interesting because if you think about it, the noise of accessibility is a lot quieter. You know what I'm saying? So like you have a lot of people asking themselves now, like, what do I need in my life? What's essential to me, and what do I want in my life? And what do I want in my life? You know what I'm saying? So I think more than anything, it's important to um, ask yourself, what does your own personal brand represent to your audience today? And it's important to let the human side and its values show. Because so if you think about it, kind of pivoting to what Nick had mentioned, what Gretchen had mentioned, at the end of the day, for example, I remember when we launched the Myodetox virtual sessions, it was an easy decision for us to say, hey, listen, no, we want to offer this complimentary to our clients, to our community, because for us, from like dating back to day one at Myodetox, we always hooked, I guess, our decision making based off our values. And one of those values is, again, empowering others and committing yourself to others. So community and building relationships was just always a constant thread. Whether our doors were closed or not, like we'd be building community now. And it was just in that case, we're like, okay, cool. How do we reinvent it and connect to somebody? So again, going back to kind of the foundation of the stuff that my colleagues mentioned, was that more so like, look at it from the lens of you are your own company, you are your own brand. Think of it from the lens of, if, for example, you're your own company or the clinic that you work at, whatever the case is, think of that as a person. You know what I mean? And that's how we actually look at Myodetox. How is Myodetox as a person? Like, how would Myodetox be acting today on a phone call? How would, what's Myodetox's values at the dinner table? And, like, how are they connecting with people? And just really just kind of strip away the noise and start looking at it from that kind of lens. And then you'll start to have a better understanding of like what the world is telling you that they need versus how we're starting to see it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Earlier in the chat, I asked people who their favorite brand was. Things went nuts. I saw Gucci a lot, Nike. How can you align some of the things that I guess Myodetox has done, or some of the way that you're thinking about presenting those emotions in alignment with what other brands are doing out there?
Yeah, I think one of the, I guess the ones that really caught fire, the one campaign that Nike launched probably 2 weeks ago, play inside, play for the world, right? Essentially, it's funny, it's interesting how that one was incredible. Like you had everybody under the sun, including myself, getting goosebumps reading that thing. You know what I mean? And it was shared from multiple perspectives, whether it's from an athlete personally signing it, down to just individuals saying, you know what, this is, we're in this all together. And it's interesting because if you look at when Nike shared it, it was the exact same message of like, hey, stay indoors. Right. You know what I mean? But then there was this other campaign that launched with McDonald's, for example, and they had like their infamous golden arches separated. And it was their public service announcement saying, again, kind of the same parallel thing what Nike was saying, which was, stay apart, but we're still united. But right. Funny enough, like creatively, I was like, oh, that's dope. I get it. But it kind of came off tone deaf. And a lot of people were giving it flack on social media. If they were from the agency world, and consumers were like saying, oh, they're going to be spending all this money to their creative agency. Why don't they put that money and allocate it to a bigger purpose? Maybe it's helping out the front lines. Maybe it's, like donating to a worthy cause to help this whole pandemic right now. So it's interesting to see from both of those perspectives, where if McDonald's had the exact same message, but said, hey, listen to anybody on the front lines, come in, we're going to give you a free breakfast because we know you've been working hard. So that's probably one of the biggest things I would say is, again, just listen first and don't react quickly, and just kind of, again, listen to what the world is telling you, and just make sure, it's just a very delicate world right now. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like you don't want to come off too opportunistic. You just want to make sure that at the end of the day, the decisions you make, whatever that is, to market yourself or to communicate yourself to your community, you just want to make sure that at the end of the day, it's rooted in your values. So whatever decision you make, whether the consumer sees it right or wrong, it's a decision that you could like lay in bed with and sleep at night and say, you know what, I'm proud of that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Gretchen, you mentioned that earlier, that this is the time during this adversity when you want to look 2-3 years from now into the past, and like how do you represent yourself during these times? How did you stand true behind your values, and how did you support your community? Marco, you have a question here around, the question is, being a new therapist during this time, would it be more beneficial to brush up on skills and education, or take advantage of more people being social media and building your presence? So I can personally speak to that I think you should be doing both. I think that your social media presence and what you might be doing online, you should be doing that with first thing in mind is taking care of your community, and your community is following you online, and they trust in what you have to say more than any other authority out there. And as I read a little bit more, I know you're talking about, social capital obviously goes a long way. Social capital, unfortunately, becomes synonymous with quality of care and what people are able to provide. But what will never take over that social capital is the personal trust and connection that you built with the people in your community. But then all in the same time, your ability to connect with them in a thoughtful way, your ability to connect with them in a tangible way, because people are on edge right now, that is you brushing up on your skills. Because more so than any, anatomy textbook that you can read, your ability to connect with people supersedes your, physiology or biomechanical background. Like how thought and thorough you are in that space, it never adds up, or it never supersedes how you're able to connect with people. So as you continue to build your online presence, no matter how noisy it is, your community is going to latch on to you and what you have to say. And we've gotten a lot of incredible feedback on that with our platform. So we've been doing IG Live, and our community at Myodetox has been incredible. Our therapist team, we originally started with, I think, like 4 a day, and we actually had to scale it back because we had so much support from our team. Everybody wanted to jump on there and support our community, and it was so much that we dialed it back to 2 because we thought that we were flooding too much, almost like care in the world, so to say. So again, I think you can use your social media presence to build more relationships, to nurture the relationships you've already built, and use that as a platform to sharpen your tools. Gretchen, Nick, anything to add to that on just being a new therapist, what a new therapist should be focused on right now to help themselves level up and build better relationships?
I mean, I'll add to it. I think Vin actually wrote it in the comments there that, everyone is overvaluing social media at the moment, and they should be over-indexing on their current caseload and relationships. And I 100% agree. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of easy to kind of go towards, like what Kev said makes a lot of sense. And absolutely, there's going to be, a shared value system that you and your community holds. And that amount of trust is something that you should continue to nurture and build through time. But like everything in life, like everything just takes a long time. It takes a lot of investment to create that amount of trust especially through a noisy platform like social media and Instagram.
Right.
Nothing wrong with that. But what Vin's saying, which is just to, think about the existing relationships that you already have. Even as a new therapist, you have relationships, right? It doesn't mean that clients do not value what you provide them because you're a new therapist. They trust you, right? They trust you more than they trust me or Kevin or Vin or whoever. They trust you because you've already been able to provide that value for them. Absolutely. Right? So it goes back to, the basics of relationship building and caseload building, and why people go towards the masses sometimes is because a lot of times they think the reach is much more significant. But really, if you think about what a network effect is it's exponential growth through. Right. It's not a linear growth. It's not like one person it's not 1 + 1 = 2. It's 1 + 1 = 10. That's how network effects work. Right. But the level of trust and the amount of trust that you can build through those networks is always much more significant, especially at a time when the masses are going towards social media.
Right.
So just something to keep in mind.
No, yeah, absolutely. Caroline over here in the chat said it loud and clear: trust over skill. And Nick, I think just to draw on your point, just dovetail a little bit off of that again, now's the opportunity to dig deep and really define your purpose. And if your purpose is a very local based community to support your local business, then the noise of the world doesn't matter, because that one-on-one connection that you made with a particular community partner or influencer that is in your local community will always supersede how loud somebody's platform is in the world. But if your purpose is to have a more global audience and a global reach, because that's what supports your business, then your entire thinking changes. But I would say that 99% of us out there are looking to support a very local community. So the noise in the world doesn't matter as much, because the connections that you build and the network effect that you're working towards, they're two completely separate entities. And Nick, on that point, the question's kind of coming up a couple of times here, and I think it continues on this conversation of trust and relationship building. Is a couple of questions here around the idea or the thought behind offering complimentary sessions, why that was a decision that was made, how that weighs up against paid sessions, and when we're thinking about this entire idea of building relationships.
Yeah, I mean, the decision was definitely not something that we took lightly, number one. Again, when faced with, big challenges fast, we kind of have to make decisions quickly. And the first thing, is we look at our priority list and like, how does this affect our team? And we look at, short term, we had to ensure that the team had financial relief so that they can, take care of themselves and take care of their families. That's very important it's rooted in these decisions. We looked at the government programs, did our research, contacted our lawyers, accountants, like all that kind of stuff, made decisions based on the best available information at the time in order to support our team. As new information comes out, we've had to pivot a couple of times, and that's okay. We don't know the future. We can't answer like everything all the time. New information is always going to come out, and how you build trust with your teams is admitting that you made mistakes. Right. We don't know all the answers, but we're going to do what's best based on the available information that we have at any given time. Right. And when we made the decision to do complimentary sessions, it was a educated guess on the government support, as well as our ability to educate our team on the purpose of virtual sessions. And the purpose of virtual sessions is providing a shared value with your client, right? So that is the first thing you have to answer, is what is that value that you're trying to provide, as opposed to how much should I charge, right? Whether you charge or not is really not, that's like the secondary question. The first question is, what are you actually trying to provide? Well, I'm trying to provide a safe place for my client to be able to, talk to me and chat with me in a time of need. That's the first step. Right. So we made the decision based on short-term financial relief for the team. Right. And then long-term, looking at, well, how do we use these virtual sessions to benefit our team in the long term? Because we 100% expect to be back. Do we know that for sure? No, but I don't think this is going to end the world. We're going to be back. Right. We're going to be back, and we need to educate our team long term and what that means for you. We want you to be successful in this journey, right? Short term rewards and long term investment is two different things. You're going to have to make some short term sacrifices, as is everyone in the company and is everyone in the world right now, in order to position ourselves for more success and ability to help more people in the future, right? So I think weighing all the options, 100% it was the best move for our team, right? And then secondly, for our clients and our community at large as well. So it just seemed like it checked all the boxes. We're going to go with complimentary sessions, right? But
for sure. Yeah, and just to touch on what Nick is saying there, like the purpose behind the virtual sessions is way more important than whether you decide to charge or not charge, because you can offer and provide value either way. But again, once you unpack the purpose of virtual session and what that means to your community, again, and that's both internally and externally, then you can make a decision based on that. Like we had many conversations with our team where even the concept of doing an online session where we're so hardwired to we're so hardwired to in-person interaction is like the core of our product, that some people were uncomfortable with offering paid sessions right out the gate on a platform and in an environment and in a way that I'm not sure I can deliver all the value that I know I could deliver in person. So also for our team, starting complimentary allowed us an opportunity to get reps with it, to work with the people, the community that we've already built, and see how people interact with that platform, and then build off of that. Like Nick said, the situation is very fluid. Every single day, new information is coming out, and based on the information we had at the time and currently to this date, that approach makes the most sense to us. And like Nick said, if we have to pivot, we will pivot, and it'll always be based on our team, how they're feeling, and if they feel the most supported with it, and then with our clients in our community. I'm just looking at my clock here. We're already out of time. We're already at 60 minutes. We knew this time would fly by. Thank you guys so much for jumping on panel. Mike, Gretchen, Nick, I'll be seeing a lot of you in the coming weeks. All of you folks out there that tuned in today, I hope you found something of value, even if there was one nugget of information that's gonna, get you to think a little bit deeper. ThinkTank was created to help you think differently, give you a framework to base your decisions on. And again, what we always want to do is just create an environment and a safe space where people could get vulnerable, ask their questions, and let's all just grow together. If you have any questions, any feedback on how this is delivered, again, it's a living organism. We're going to continue to pivot and grow from this. And we want to carve it out in the best way to maximize this 60 minutes of time and bring you the most value possible. Please share your feedback. ThinkTank@myodetox.com is where you want to send that to. We'll be sending you a post-up email at a point, and you'll get the email in there, where the email address in there where you could shoot us off any questions or feedback you might have. Next week, just want to give you a little preamble on the topic. What we want to do is take today's discussion and get a little bit more tactical, a little bit more strategic. We really want to talk about how your personal and company values, and again, it's an incredible week for you to think about your own brand, think about your own values, dig deep, figure that out. And when we talk next week, we'll be talking about how do you take those values and create marketing communications around that. Because again, your brand is what you represent, and the emotions around what you're building, and marketing is just how you communicate that with the world. So that's what we'll be covering next week. Again, thank you guys so much for your time. We really appreciate it. Anything else, you guys, before we sign off here? Cool. I think we're all good. Again, thank you guys so much for carving out an hour of your time to kick it with us. We're really excited to keep this thing rolling and keep building on this. Again, there was about 140 of you that tuned in today. So we're incredibly blessed and humbled by your presence. And we're just going to keep growing this thing. Share this with anybody else you feel will find value. Cool. Thanks so much, guys. Appreciate it. Signing off.